So the main thing in the past 24 hours was this huge ambush taking place by the Palestinian resistance, which is something that resembles the true nature of the Palestinian resistance, how it operates, and why Israel actually has no chance whatsoever in defeating the Palestinian resistance. The Israelis, as usual, they're continuing this genocide with attacking civilians and innocent people, women being rescued from under the rubble, others being as fortunate, infants and children killed and severely wounded, with multiple attacks coming from the terrorist forces of Israel inside of the Gaza Strip. But everyone in Israel was talking about this operation initially with a level of shock, a level of surprise. They haven't seen something like this, and some described it in Israel as the biggest operation since the war actually began 2 years ago and the genocide took place inside of the Gaza Strip. So what exactly happened? Well, the Palestinian resistance, especially Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, they published a statement in their on their Telegram channel, speaking about an ambush that they conducted against the Israeli terrorists inside of the Gaza Strip. They spoke about a significant ambush that took place with dozens of fighters inside of the ambush that ambushed a place where there were Israeli soldiers, basically a base belonging to the Israeli terror forces in Gaza, with multiple soldiers. I'm going to read out the actual statement coming from Al-Qassam brigades, but they of course haven't elaborated on everything, mind you. So at the end of the day, there was more elaboration and more details coming out from other sources as well. But that statement that came from Al-Qassam brigades, it stated that this morning Al-Qassam fighters managed to raid a newly established enemy position southeast of Khan Yunis city in the southern Gaza Strip, with a Qassam force consisting of an infantry platoon. The Qassam fighters stormed the position and targeted a number of Merkava 4 guard tanks with a number of Shuwaz and Fidaiyin explosive devices and Al Yasin 105 RPG shells. The Qassam fighters also targeted a number of houses in which occupation soldiers were entrenched to secure them with 6 anti-fortification and anti-personnel shells and machine gun fire. A number of fighters stormed the houses and killed a number of occupation soldiers inside at point-blank range with light weapons and hand grenades. The Qassam fighters also managed to snipe the commander of Merkava 4 tank and fatally wound him. Our fighters pounded the positions of surrounding the site of the operation with a number of mortar shells to cut off reinforcements. The site of the operation was pounded with a number of mortar shells to secure the withdrawal of the fighters from the site. Immediately upon the arrival of the rescue force, one of the suicide bombers blew himself up among the soldiers, killing and wounding them. The attack continued for several hours, and our fighters monitored the landing of helicopters for evacuation. That's the end of the statement from Al-Qassam brigades directly. So what did they actually do in more detail, and what happened with the Israeli forces over there? Well, firstly, we're talking about an attack. This is no longer an ambush. This is an attack taking place by the Palestinian resistance. They dug a tunnel to reach a certain location where Israeli genocide forces are based in what they call the Murag line, close to Khan Yunis. They had a tunnel opening in the middle of that base. They got out, and we're talking about at least 15 people here, 15 fighters. And they started conducting attacks against the Israeli terror forces inside of the Gaza Strip, killing and wounding many of them. Israel so far admitted that 4 were wounded. One of them was critically wounded, but they also said that they killed 10 of the Palestinian resistance fighters. They showed images that need, of course, verification, because that's the end of the day. It's the pathological liars of Israel publishing these images and this footage of 2 killed Palestinian fighters. Again, you cannot verify if it was from today or from another date. And they also showed one Israeli attack on a tunnel opening that targeted another Palestinian resistance fighter. Again, requires verification, but in total you're talking about 3, whereas the Palestinian resistance did not confirm that they had or suffered any losses due to this attack, and most likely there would be at some point something being published from the Palestinian resistance to show some footage, because usually any large operations conducted by the resistance, they will have a cameraman with them, or some of the fighters will be wearing camera gear on their heads during the operation. Several points, several very, very important points here. Number 1, we're talking about an area that Israel declared it controls and has been controlling for months now during what it labeled as Gideon's chariots. A place where they confirmed by their defense minister and by multiple figures in the Israeli army that they defeated Hamas in over and under the ground. That's where this attack happened. In addition to that, the Palestinian resistance was holding equipment preparing to kidnap an Israeli or multiple Israeli terrorists from the Israeli terror forces to take back into the tunnels. Israel, reports said, carried out the Hannibal Directive again against its own soldiers by killing them with some of the Palestinian resistance fighters. However, so far these have just been reports. This isn't the first time that the Palestinian resistance is trying to do something like that during the genocide inside of the Gaza Strip. We had another revelation that a similar ambush took place in Beit Hanun, the closest area to Israel, over 8 days ago, with more details being published now. And in that attack, at least 8 Palestinian resistance fighters participated in the battle. Israel later on came up with a statement. Its spokesperson of the Israeli terror army came up with a statement to try and clarify the situation, and said that there was indeed an attack coming out, and the man was contradicting himself during his statement by saying that we indeed defeated them over and under the ground in those areas. However, well, hey, there was an ambush and they dug a tunnel, and that tunnel came up in the middle of this base that we are comfortably in, or we claim that we have been comfortably in for a very long time, and all of a sudden they popped up and started to target our child killers. But there's something new. Now, Israel is saying that it's Gideon's Chariots B. The campaign that they're going to conduct in Gaza after this is Gideon's Chariots B. Why? Well, it's because it's a continuation of the initial Gideon's Chariots. How so? We thought this is the final attack, the huge attack, the decisive measure to completely eliminate the Hamas. No, this is a reflection of the Israeli army and their incapability, and them sending a message to the political delegation that despite the fact that they haven't approved this operation yet and haven't decided when to launch this operation, they're already calling it Gideon's Chariots B, because they know very well that they have no capacity nor capability to conduct anything but another huge failure at the same scale of Gideon's Chariots 1 or Netanyahu's wheelchairs 1, and now they have Netanyahu's wheelchairs 2, number 2 or B. More Israeli officials are now saying we need at least 50 to 60,000 soldiers, down from 250,000 and then 100 and then 130,000. with officials from the Israeli army confirming to ABC News that they are desperately in need of 10 to 12,000 genocidal maniacs to join the Israeli terror army. And that Israel is trying desperately with Jewish communities abroad to attract people to go and participate in the genocide. And a question arises here. Are these attempts by Israel monitored by foreign governments? Them trying to recruit people to bring to participate in a genocide? Is that not considered an act of terrorism and a recruitment for terrorism and a support for an ongoing genocide and a war crime? Or is that perfectly legal? Very important question here. But the main thing outside of this whole story is the fact that what we saw now is a genuine reflection of the state of affairs in Gaza, ladies and gentlemen. Israel is on a genocidal mission, undeniably. The Palestinian resistance is not only focusing on defensive measures or ambushes, they are conducting very complex attacks. This attack that they carried out, it included a unit of fighters focusing on short to medium range firepower, a unit to take down any sort of line of support coming from the genocide troops, a unit to monitor, and a unit of snipers. Each unit has different types of weapons, popping out of nowhere, targeting child killers, shocking them and surprising them. And this is sending another huge blow to the whole country. How are we being attacked in this area when we're talking about entering another area? And also just imagine for 1 second that the Palestinian resistance succeeded in kidnapping another terrorist, another Israeli terrorist. How would that look like? And the fact that this genocide is continuing and these terrorists inside of the Gaza Strip, occupying the Gaza Strip, are still there, there's always a risk of that succeeding for the Palestinian resistance. And they would kidnap more Israeli terrorists to use as leverage against Israel through the negotiations. And they will join their fellow terrorists held as prisoners of war in the hands of the Palestinian resistance. This is the clearest indication in the past 2 to 3 weeks that Israel is doomed completely. Israel is totally doomed in Gaza. Netanyahu really doesn't know what he's doing. He is taking the country down the path of annihilation for his own interests and for his own political gain. No pressure is stopping him from committing crimes against the Palestinian people, but the Palestinian resistance is showing him and the whole world that they can never be beaten and that they will never surrender up until Israel ends the genocide and withdraws completely from the Gaza Strip.